Well, I shall start talking about my gear by talking about my guitar. People always think this is like a $3,000 inlay job. It's actually stickers by a company called Neck Illusions. And it's an amazing material. It doesn't leave any stick 'em on. You can put it on, and if you don't place it right, you can pull it off multiple times and put it back on, and it's fine. And I've got 6 steampunk designs for them. Steve Vai has half a dozen that he's drawn and painted. And it's just kind of fun. You can have a new guitar every week if you want to. You change your strings, put new stickers on. I've been using the Floyd Rose since the early 80s, so that is a must. This stuff I'll explain because it will make no sense. It's a bracket for the Fishman triple play MIDI system, which I obviously don't have on right now. And I had this problem of always playing and grabbing the cable that comes out here, and I'd be playing along, and all of a sudden the pickup would pull out and hit the strings, and then you can't play anymore. So I got these little clips to keep the string out of the way. Fishman Fluence pickups. I have a modern in the bridge, and they're Stratocaster pickups in the other spots. And this is my first 24-fret guitar, and it's got the Stevens cutaway, which is very handy, so you can get to the very last fret easily. In fact, Nuno had this for years, and I noticed this as part of the brand, but I didn't realize what was behind it. It's like a whole new freedom being able to get up that high. Standard volume tone 5-way switcher, and this is my own Batten string damper, which I've been using that since the early 80s after I was using a terry cloth sock to keep things quiet for tapping. It just wasn't too practical to use live. Plus, it didn't smell so good. So I looked for something better, and there was a company selling them in the back of Guitar World magazine. But anybody that's come out with them has only been out for a very short time. It was never in the stores, and so I finally had these manufactured. And there's a couple different models. One is like this, where you have to put a couple wood screws in for if the tuners don't line up straight across, like a Gibson, or for a Stratocaster type headstock. And the other ones, you don't have to screw anything in. You can just put it under the washer, and pressure will keep the damper in place. I've got a thumb screw here, so the higher up the neck you go, the better it's going to dampen. But I usually keep it behind the first fret. And one of the reasons I like the arm over a sock or anything else is I can just flip it out of the way in a hurry if I want open strings or harmonics. So I can go straight from tapping. Get it out of the way, or be... So it's kind of convenient. I've been using that for years and years and years. Other than that, I dig the guitar. It's been around. It's been a little beat up by the airlines, as they do. And below, I was actually the first customer for Thomas Blug's Amp 1. And I just went to pay a social visit one day, and he had just finished the prototype. And I only knew him as a player. I didn't know he was an amp designer. And he had me plug in, and I said, holy crap, when can I get one? Less than 3 pounds. I could put it in my carry-on. It's driven by a sub-miniature tube. He calls it a nano tube. It's 4 channels. And all the control that you need. It's super simple on the face of it. And then if you want to customize it, there are some extra controls on the side. It's also MIDI capable. He's one of these guys that he's a great player, and he plays all the time, so he knows what a traveling guitar player needs. And I know for myself, every time I finish a tour, I'm on the plane coming home thinking, what could I leave home next time? How could I make this lighter? The excess luggage charges kick my butt. And you know, you want more and more control over the sound you get, because if you put whatever amp on the rider and you show up and they got a completely different thing, or it's an amp that's not maintained, it can be a super drag. So being able to take a 100-watt 4-channel amp into my carry-on or into my purse is a real godsend. And so I said I wanted it immediately, and it was, gosh, I think at least 6 months of waiting, or it just seemed like an eternity before he had them manufactured. So I've been using that ever since. I'm using it as the 4-cable method, which, if people are not familiar, that allows you to choose what effects are before the preamp and what effects are between the preamp and the power amp section of it. And people, even though I tell them this is a full-on head, they still go, so it's just a preamp, right? You still need a power amp. No, everything is in this box. And I've been using, I'm about to switch over to the HX effects, but I'm not done programming yet. So I've been using this Digitech Rp 1000 for, gosh, maybe 5 years or so. And I've been with Digitech for 30 years. Wow, a long, long time. And I love a lot of the effects in here. I love the onboard expression pedal. I usually program solo sounds to have a whammy pedal that will go down a whole step with my foot. So and because I suck at slide, basically. So plus I don't have to go pick up a slide and wonder where it was and then break a glass slide on the stage. So I use my foot a lot for sliding. And I usually set it up for a solo sound with some delay. Then I'll have the exact same thing for comping. I always set up with a clean sound. And one of my favorites is a swell sound. And I love that sound. When I first started using it, people thought it was a synthesizer that I was triggering, but it's, and I also started with stereo with a Ping-Pong Delay that sounded great. It was just popping between the speakers, but I have a mono amp now, so I'm going mono with it. It's got some delay, it's got the kitchen sink, it's got a noise gate that works like an automatic volume pedal. So when you hit the notes, the volume swells up, and it just gives a real ethereal sound. So that's inspired a few songs. Another one of my favorites that's a Digitech only is, they called it Derp. It's I think there was some beer involved in naming some of these sounds. It's like a talker. Sounds very much like the tube talker, but it's a lot more sanitary, because God only knows where the roadie's hands have been that put that tube onto the mic stand. Plus, I've heard if you play really loud, it can knock your fillings out. So it can be very expensive. And I'm just putting the word out there. Anybody that can make this sound, please do it, because Digitech is not making these anymore. And I haven't found anybody that can come close to getting that sound. So here's like the difference between a yaw and a wah. This is very, very different in sound. And because I do mostly instrumental music, I like to use a lot of sounds, and I like to use that because it makes it more vocal sounding. So what else have we got here? A little vibro. That's a little OD vibro. And I use, they have a pretty cool envelope filter to it. I like that. And that's most of the sounds I use. And then I always put a volume pedal to the side so I can adjust to the band or tracks or whatever I'm playing with. Because invariably you get a volume that's great, drummer gets excited, and you get buried. So this is my weapon to be heard. And I've been using these for years now, the Boss FV50L. And the reason is it's 1 pound. It's plastic. If they break, I'll just get another one, because weight is everything when you travel.